Hey Penny, welcome to Wealth Talk.
Hello, wonderful to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Penny. Now, Penny, let's kick off by just finding out a little bit more about you for our listeners. So how long have you personally been in business?
So I started in business at 19 and I'm 55 now, but I started off in my own business being an entrepreneur when I was 33. So up until I was 33, I suppose I got a salary. Can you imagine?
You're in the rat race.
I was in the rat race.
Yeah. Okay. And, we're talking about business as an asset, Penny. You're familiar with the 7 pillars of wealth. And we heard last week from John Warrilow, and he was talking about creating a business that has recurring income and how that gives you predictability, peace of mind. And of course, when it comes to selling a business, if that's your end goal, then that recurring income is a really important piece that the buyer will want to see. So what's your experience in many different types of business that I know you've been involved in, Penny? What are some of the challenges maybe with, selecting the model from the beginning so that it can grow to be a business that actually runs without you?
Yeah, so when Thomas and I started Ecademy in 98, which for anybody that wonders who Ecademy is, it was the first social network for business. It was 4 years before LinkedIn. We had a belief around people paying monthly and people paying for the service, and people paid on a software as a service, SaaS way. And that was, a fantastic way of the predictability in our business. It was only a small amounts. It was £10, $10, €10. And we went across the whole world with that model. But we're talking about very early 2000s. So we started the business in 98. We were ready to launch the SaaS model, the subscription model in 2000. LinkedIn didn't start till 2002, Facebook 2004, Twitter 2006. So we were really trailblazing the concept of it. But it definitely helped us on cash flow, and it helped us to see what we could invest, and it helped us to get investors having that model, because it was, it was a healthy model of money that you could see going forward, which was fantastic.
And I know you mentor a lot of business owners now, Penny. What are some of the challenges you see with business owners when they're, starting out or even established? What are some of the pitfalls?
I recognize a huge amount of them because I called myself an accidental entrepreneur for years. I think moving from being a business person in a business where your skill, when you're employed, you have a particular skill that you're employed to do in a department. So you probably work in marketing or sales or finance, and within that you have a particular skill. And usually people then take that skill into their business, and I would call that your primary skill. I think the pitfalls I see over and over and over again is that nobody starts with all of the business disciplines and the skills around it. So I'd call those the secondary skills that you have in your business. And that is vast, isn't it? I mean, I added up the other day how many software as a service tools I use to run our little business, which is just Thomas and I, right? 48.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
Mm.
I spend £1,200 a month on software as a service in our business. But that is the job of probably 2 or 3 people. That I'm doing through automation and through just being able to nudge the odd thing. So, that's just looking at the digital skills part. And I think, and then there's mindset, there's understanding your mindset to business, understanding your vulnerabilities, your ability to take risk, your resilience, And that varies by, you can almost look at your psychometric tests that are, there's a wealth of those. Mm-hmm. To discover where those character vulnerabilities will show up.
Yeah, we're both fans of wealth dynamics, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And then I suppose the third, so if the first was, your strong mind, which I think is really critical, understanding yourself, then there's your digital skills to have those disciplines or leadership skills. And then the other one is the skills of being connected and really understanding how to build your brand and be connected online in an authentic way and knowing how to reach out to people, which still, 20 years on from Ecademy launching and 16 years on from LinkedIn launching, still people are very poor at that.
Yes. And I know this is close to your heart as well, isn't it? Is connectivity. And your book that you released last year, Penny, congratulations on that. Business is Personal. I know you're very busy still, even nearly a year later, speaking and sharing this. But tell us a little bit about why you wrote that book, Penny.
So when I started out as an entrepreneur when I was 33, I just had this passion, this belief system around us being connected as friends online, as business people. So we had MySpace and Friends Reunited in the UK were big, but that was all for the consumer. And I thought, surely we could have one for business people. And when I started it, I was still breastfeeding my third child. I had a toddler and a little girl just started school. It wasn't my intention to build a global business. And all that would take. And I think the definition of ambition for people is really important. I hadn't really defined what level of sacrifice I was willing to make and what my level of ambition was. We had a very simple middle class life, living fairly predictably and safe. And Thomas, was a great breadwinner for us. I was doing a bit of stuff. It was all safe. And then I went into this mind of being an entrepreneur without any awareness of my ability to take risk, my resilience, parts of my character that really started to show up. And so the reason I wrote Business is Personal, because that all came crashing down around me 2 years ago, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, which was triggered by trolls. Because Thomas and I had 17 trolls that gave us a lot of pain when we had Ecademy.
And now, just to explain the troll for anyone who might not know what that is, Penny.
Well, that's just somebody who is full of hate and irrational hate. And actually that term didn't exist when we started having it. Nobody was trolling. Police didn't understand it. But this is people that have a vendetta against you. And they had it against us because we banned them from our community because they were revolting people and we wanted to protect our community. But, at that time, none of what you hear now was going on. And we're talking 12 years ago that started. But what was interesting, 2 years ago, a troll came back into my life and I had been troll-free for 6 years. Wasn't expecting it. It was at a time when I was going through a lot of pressure, personal and business. Resilience was a bit lower, obviously. Anyway, this triggered something, which then got diagnosed as PTSD, which then took me into saying I need to see a psychologist, which was the best thing I've ever done. And seriously, the best thing I've ever done. Because I think one of the things about an entrepreneur is they are very independent, which is a strength. But the overdone strength of an entrepreneur is they are very independent. They don't go and ask for help and they don't allow their vulnerabilities to show up. And, we're told you've got to be resilient. And I thought I was very proud of how resilient I was against a lot of financial challenges, a lot of emotional challenges, loss, traumas in our family. But in the end, it happened and it did affect me quite deeply. Didn't mean I was a shaking wreck in the corner of a room. I just had to reassess my life and make sure that I was going to lead a business life that was right for me. And that is that's the subtitle of my book, Business is Personal, Be the Leader of Your Life and Business. I'd never considered that. So through really deeply looking at myself, I realized the lack of self-care I had and also character sort of vulnerabilities. Like, for example, I'm incredibly conscientious as a person. I can never let anyone down. In fact, I got 95 out of 100 on a conscientious test, which is off the scale madness. But equally, I got 88 out of 100 on how agreeable I am. Well, if you're very agreeable and want to say yes to everyone, you're very conscientious and you don't want to let anyone down, it doesn't take a genius to realize how overwhelming that is. So now those are two character traits that I'm happy with. I like being agreeable. I like helping people. And I like being very conscientious. And from a very young age, I used to do my homework at the beginning of a summer holiday. All my project was done by day 2. I have to get things done. So I don't want to change that, but I have to learn to work around it. And the other thing is that I need certainty. As a person, I need certainty. Some people like to know that life is uncertain. Some people like risk. Some people like variety. Some people get bored very easily. I have a deep need for certainty. You know, when I met Thomas, when I was 24, I had 2 endowment policies on my mortgage. I had a school fees policy set up for 2 children I hadn't even conceived. And I had a healthcare policy. Well, what 24-year-old thinks like that, especially all those years ago? So I need certainty, but I took myself into a world of high risk. So again, you need to learn how to work with that. So that's what prompted me to write Business is Personal, because when I was sitting in the room with this psychologist, learning stuff, I thought if I had known all this before I was an entrepreneur, or at least when I was embarking on risk and building assets and all the stuff that we advocate, I would have had a better, more enjoyable, less stressful journey, and probably would have been able to be more successful at the end of the day.
And now that you've obviously published the book, Penny, and you're speaking, and people are really seeing you as a champion for this message, are you realizing just how many people in business are struggling?
Christian, it's unbelievable. It's deeply disturbing and unbelievable. What is beautiful is that if you look at change, when you look at behavioral change in a person or in an organization or in society, if this was, let me get something I can hold up that you can see. So can you see my ruler?
I can.
Right. If this was a balance, and we feel that we need to change because we're all the way over here, what we tend to do go is all the way over there. And then eventually we come back to balanced, and we don't go back that way, but we stay in the middle. And I think the world has gone a little bit over that way. So because we went so online, it's all become fake. Because we're so online, people who don't even suit the online world are feeling overwhelmed by it and don't know how to get the skills. So everything needs to be rebalanced. And what I found in sharing my story is that there is a particular group of people that cannot retire, that don't have their pensions worked out, that probably haven't sorted out their property, 50 plus, haven't been able to create the assets in their lives, have had a lot of adversity, have had to cope with economic and technical disruption, but they're going to have to work potentially for the next 20 years. And when I talk to that sector, just by telling them that this is normal, that you're not on your own, that I've been through a lot of this, that I know I've got to work for another 20 years, that I'm a good person, that I'm a skilled person, but I've had to find my way through it. Just saying that seems to relieve them of a lot of the stress they have, because they feel so alone in their pain, and hard to admit it to people. And I think as a torchbearer on this subject, I don't mind laying myself out there, and I have enough inner self-value really to feel that if I'm judged by this, then those are the sort of people I don't want to know anyway. And so hopefully by my honesty and my journey and also my recovery, I allow people to feel better about themselves. And that's a big driver for me, because I think if you feel better about yourself, then you can get up and change and adapt and reinvent and find new ways and learn. So, yeah.
And it is true that on social media, the brush always paints a very, pretty picture of success and, the fame, and entrepreneurship in general is often, glamorized. And we know the reality of business is hard. There is stress, there's rejection, there's overwhelm. Despite all of those challenges though, Penny, why do you like the business asset class so much, and why do you feel it's an important piece for not everybody, but for some people when it comes to building their long-term wealth? So I personally love it because I get to, being my own business owner, I get to express my own values, tell my own story, build a business that's right for me, and I have that autonomy.
But a lot of people come to me and say, I want freedom. I mean, I think that's a big value for most people. Freedom, financial freedom, freedom of choice. To me, the ultimate form of freedom is when you're free to be yourself. And I think there is a big gap between the identity that people put forward and their truth. And when you compress that and you get rid of that gap, you reduce a lot of the stress that people hold. And I suppose that's what I want to trailblaze, that find your own truth, find the life that is right for you, and build the people around you that are right for you. And I love being a business owner for that reason. And it also allows me to have the impact I want to have. And I do want to work till I die. Hopefully I don't die until I'm in my 90s. My father's 92 and he's amazing. So I hope I live a long life, and I don't really want to retire because I'm doing what I love doing. And for as long as I believe I can have impact. So I completely advocate having your own business. But I do advocate understanding yourself before you do it. And if, like me, you have to take a step back to do that and go and get help or join a mastermind class or get a coach or see a psychologist or whatever, get rid of baggage, because we all do create limiting beliefs about ourselves because of the knocks. And I know I used to be much more ambitious than I am now. I'm quite happy to keep myself slightly protected now, but I hope my next journey will be that I will allow risk into my life again, but I've got to get to that point, and I will have to become that ambitious person again. At the moment, I'm really enjoying what I'm on, the journey I'm on now, which is safer, and I love it.
That's great. I really appreciate you taking time to share with us today, Penny, and wishing you all the best for the future.
Oh, I've loved it. Thank you for asking me those questions.
Thank you, Penny.